Live. Okie dokie. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our movie, TV show, musical breakdown show, Haters Without a Cause. Yes, Perry is not here. I'm sorry. They're the worst thing on the planet, I know. But this is not our big comeback episode, okay? This is a small, like, it's a lost
Filler.
episode. Yeah, it's filler. That's what we'll call it. Um I got a very special guest here with me. Uh Steven, whoa. It's always good to have you on, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Um, just having a good time. Just here, existing, excited.
This is your fourth time on the show, isn't it?
Is it the fourth time? I've been here a few times. I know that.
You were on the core episodes, the Spider-Verse episode, that god awful Spider-Verse video we covered, and now you're here.
Yes. Now we're here.
We're gonna have to make you a host at this point. So, we are actually not talking about a movie or a TV show today, or even an internet TV show. We're talking about what how would you describe Epic? Is it like they call it a concept
It's
album,
a
right?
yes, a concept album.
It's something that is very novel, I think. It is uh, I guess an adaptation of the
It's a
Odyssey.
yes. It's a loose like retelling, taking like parts of the Odyssey, but not like everything.
But I guess the conceit is that it's told entirely through song.
Yes.
It's something that I think is very neat because it's an idea that one man had, and from what I understand, he had help from a record company, but there was a situation with the record company, so he pretty much had to strike out on his own, and auditions were taking place entirely through TikTok, and apparently it's all like indie, but the result is like it's like industry grade. It's really good, really professional, very well crafted. And Steve has been telling me about it for ages, but I didn't listen to it till earlier this year when a coworker recommended it to me. So I was like, all right, fine, gun to my head, I'll finally check it out. I was very impressed with these, not only with the musical aspect, but the storytelling. Um, I read the Odyssey in I read the Spark Notes version of the Odyssey in high school, so I knew like the gist of the story, but I didn't really understand like the potential of the narrative, I guess, until I I took it in this form. I thought it was incredible. What is your experience with the Odyssey and Epic the musical, Stephen?
So for me, like just like you, I read like the Spark Notes version back in high school. Um, but I was still like really into the story, even though I didn't like fully read it until recently. Um, I'm still not even done the entire book yet. But from my experience with the Odyssey is that I have always been really into Greek mythology, so I would like read up on all sorts of different stories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, especially now or especially lately as I've been reading more Greek-based stories such as Circe by Madeline Miller, which is, you know, it takes place around the same time as the Odyssey because Odysseus is a, major character. Or even Songs of Achilles, which takes place during the Iliad, which is the prequel to the Odyssey. Um, yeah.
Well, I'm a
So
big old fan of Greek mythology, especially thanks to Hades. But I'm not nearly as, I guess, as knowledgeable as you. So I think between the two of us, we'll have a lot to say about the album.
I really hope so. I mean, we're gonna have a lot because there's what 40 songs in total.
40 songs, and I think a lot of them they got loads going on in terms of analysis. So I really don't
Yes.
see any reason not to just get started. Oh, guys, I'm doing something really cool as well with the UI. You won't see this until it's up, Steven, but the Discord call, I have our icons bigger and they're like centered in the middle of the screen. I had to MacGyver something in OBS to make this work. It's gonna look great. It's gonna look amazing.
I'm
Um,
excited.
as we discussed, I'm gonna have like some of the animatics playing, so the people at home have something to look at. Um, I also think there's stuff worthy of discussion in the animatics because some of them they take like creative liberties that I really like. Like
Yes, I'm not gonna lie. Without the animatics, I definitely would not have imagined the story the same way as I do now.
they definitely helped me the second time I listened through because I'm a visual learner. I need to. There's a reason why I stick to like movies and shows. Um, when it the all the information is communicated with audio, I don't. For a lot of the parts, I didn't have the best idea of what was going on. Let's just say that.
No, I definitely do agree. Because with a lot of musicals, there's a visual story already shown. Like if it's a Broadway show or from like a movie or TV show, like you already have an idea what's happening. Since this is purely on like Spotify, iTunes, and whatnot, it's like unless you're seeing a fan animation, you're sort of just trying to play the events in your own head.
Yeah, and the fan base for this musical has been very dedicated. They are shit ton of artists trying to get a piece of the pie, making their own visual interpretations of what's going on, and I don't blame them. These songs are very good. This could easily lend itself to something more visual down the line. Uh, I know when they do like the watch alongs, they have the animatics by Gigi playing, or the listen
Yes.
alongs. Sorry, the listen parties. So let's
Yes.
I see no reason not to just dive right in. Album is broken up into sagas, and how many are there? Are there nine?
Yes, there are 9 sagas.
The first one is the Troy Saga. The very first song is called "The Horse and the Infant." This takes place during I guess, the tail end of the Battle of Troy. Uh, our main man, Odysseus, he is getting ready to lead his brothers into battle. It seemed like the war hasn't been going so well, but he's now ready to turn the tides. It's established pretty quickly that he is a great tactician. He is a great leader. He's like, do what I say, and you guys will survive, and go home to see your families who miss you. So we get a we get his motivation pretty quickly as well, because he's telling them, remember what you're fighting for. What are you living for? And we understand his very quickly is to get back home to his wife and his son.
Yes.
We get the Penelope motif. Penelope. We're gonna be hearing that a lot, but we get what you might call an action sequence of the Odysseus and his crew. They are kicking ass. Life is good. But then we get a thunder call. We hear an eagle as well. I always forget that Zeus is the first god that we're introduced to, and it's as early and his introduction is here. It's not later.
Yes, it's in the very first song, and I'm not without the animatics. Is like you don't know it's Zeus unless you know his motifs, like the eagle or the thunder, like you said.
Yeah, he is the Thunderbringer. Um, he tells Odysseus of a vision of things to come. He says that you have to deal with this right here or now, or you're gonna have problems down the line, buddy. And Odysseus is like, okay, bet, point me in the direction of whoever's ass I have to kick. He says it's someone's son. I don't think you're ready. And Odysseus is like, oh, okay, I just gotta kill someone. No big, no big. So we open on a nursery, and something I appreciate, you can very much tell because you can hear like a baby mobile. Uh, I'm trying to describe the sound. It's like baby cradle sounds. There's an instrument that plays that very much communicates that this is a nursery.
Yes, I'm trying. I'm trying to remember what it was specifically.
I I
But
feel like I know what it is. It's like a something like a xylophone. I don't know. But anyway, it's just a baby, and it turns out this is because Odysseus is like, this is a baby, and Zeus says this is the son of Prince Hector of Troy, and that if you don't kill him, he's gonna grow up to try and kill you out of vengeance. Uh, and Odysseus is pleading. He's saying, "Please don't make me do this." He's telling them that he's given all these alternative solutions. He can send them away, he could raise them as his own, but Zeus is like, nah, nothing you can do. Whatever you do, all paths lead to vengeance. He's gonna create problems for you and your family, so you can say goodbye to Penelope and your son. Um, and that takes us directly to the next song called Just a Man. Uh, Odysseus is talking to the baby, telling them that he reminds him of his own son, and he is kind of apologetic because he talks about the price he's gonna have to pay to go home, and this here is what we call a test of character, and it is one of many. This is only the first, guys. Baby killing is only the first of the many tests of character Odysseus is going to have if he wants to go home.
what he's willing to do, what sacrifices is he able to make?
Yeah, it's very important to note that it's not treated as like a sadistic choice. He knows what choice he's going to have to make. He just doesn't want to have to do it. A very, very important distinction that I'm going to bring up at another point. But right now, we're just going chronological. We can't be jumping ahead. Whatever we know now is we're going to treat it as that's what we know. So we get lyrics like, when does a comet become a meteor? When does a candle become a blaze? When does a man become a monster? And when does a man become a monster is arguably the thesis statement of the whole story. It's very. I'd say that is the crux of the theme of epic. Basically, what does it? How far is someone willing to go to sort of get what they want? And the dichotomy between ruthlessness and mercy as well, which is very much going to be explored later. But ultimately, he apologizes to the baby. He says, "I am just a man," and he actually does. Does he drop the baby?
He does. He drops the baby off the balcony.
Yes, and that's it. The For the record, the baby's name is Astyanax. I just call him
Estini.
the baby.
It's much easier to say the baby
Yeah,
or the son of
that's
Hector.
one of Hector. um, it's pretty hard to talk about the musical aspects without playing it, I suppose. But there are a lot of motifs and melodies that get reincorporated later. Um, Zeus is a section of the song. It comes back a couple of times. Obviously, the Penelope motif, but we get a lot more in the next song. This is Full Steam Ahead. The journey is beginning. They have set a course for home, back to Ithaca, and they sing about the long journey ahead and all the dangers they face. The men say the problem is not the distance, it's what lies in between. And honestly, they have no idea how right they are. But they got a 600-man crew, and apparently nobody died during the battle. So, maybe this will be smooth sailing. We get introduced to Odysseus's second in command, Eurylochus. He's like, we got mouths to feed. People are hungry. What's the plan? And Odysseus pretty confidently tells him that we can look for an island to get more supplies. Look where the birds fly. And then we get introduced to another one of Odysseus's crew, a friend of his, Polyphemus. He spots an island in the distance, and he says, we can go look for food. We get a pretty good idea of the kind of characters him and Eurylochus are. Eurylochus is much more cautious. He says, we don't know what lies ahead, so we should just, ransack the place. But Polites is, he wants to go for a more, we'll call it an open-armed approach. So Odysseus, he takes a third option. He says, you and me, Polites, we're going to go scout ahead. And if we're not back by, I think he says sundown, Eurylochus, bring the others and torch the place. These two characters, they kind of represent the two, I guess, competing traits of Odysseus's character, because right away we're established that he's a very competent, cunning, guile leader, but he has a sensitive side to him as well, and this is reflected in his instrumentation. When he has his more like badass moments, his instrument is the guitar overall, but when he's having like his badass moments, it switches to electric guitar, but during his more sensitive moments, it's a softer like nylon. And yeah, that's it for Full Steam Ahead. We're kind of getting through this quickly. Am I missing anything?
I'm trying to remember. I think you're covering all of it.
The Odysseus's crew, they're represented by Eurylochus, because he's kind of the mouth of the crew. They're represented by a choir. They represent the what the crew is thinking, what they're saying. It all comes through in that they're like the Greek chorus, if you will. He's saying what everybody's thinking essentially. But then we get to the next song, Open Arms. This takes us to the island, and we get because like I said, we explored the dichotomy of mercy versus ruthlessness throughout this album, and this is the exploration. We're on one end of the spectrum right now. This is the mercy end of the spectrum. Polites, he's telling Odysseus, you can relax, friend. Take a load off. Odysseus is like, can you leave me alone? He says that Polites, he says the world could be a much better place if we, embrace everything and treat the world with open arms. That's the chorus. Try mercy, lead with an open heart. Odysseus thinks this is kind of cringe because he talks to the inhabitants of the island, and he's like, where can we find food? They surround him, and Odysseus is like, stay back. He points his sword at them. Uh, but they point him in the direction of some fruit. The problem is, this is the Lotus Eater Islands, and these are the Lotus Eaters. And Odysseus tells them that this fruit, it like influences your mind, and he takes this as proof that it's not always best to greet the world with open arms. Um, I kind of like that they have this back and forth. No side is treated as like definitively right. Because Polites, he asks the Lotus Eaters, like, hey, is there a place we can find real food? Um, he's not treated like he's naive. He just has a perspective of how he thinks the world should be. But he very clearly knows that mercy is not an option every time. Well, I mean, he was involved in the war.
And little fun fact about the Lotus Eaters. They're a musical like original. They're not there's in the actual book of the Odyssey, there aren't any like Lotus Eaters. The
Really?
plant is still very much in there, and in the actual book, multiple men eat the said lotus and they want to like stay on the island. They get like hypnotized to want to stay, and then Odysseus has to like drag all his men back onto the ship.
Mm-hmm. I actually didn't know that. Yeah, I thought they were,
Yes.
because I know later, well, we'll get to it. But the Lotus Eaters, they take them to a cave filled with sheep. So life is good. Except we get an interruption from another character. It is Athena, badass in the arena. She activates her. This is something that I had to read about or see. It had to be communicated in the animatics. So she has the ability to not really stop time. She takes you to like the best way I understand it is that she takes you to like a pocket dimension inside your head or whatever. They call it the quick thought dimension. She makes your thoughts faster, but she also uses it as a place where you can talk privately with the goddess. But right out the gate, she's telling Odysseus like, "Hey, I raised you better than this. Essentially, you are supposed to be a ruthless, cunning warrior of my own design." We find out that she mentored him, and Odysseus is plenty smart on his own. He's very clever. This is something that goes back to the original book, but it's the reason why Athena essentially took him under her wing. And we learned the story of how that came to be. So she created. Athena is a goddess of war, which is not something I see often in depictions of her, but it's very much played up here that she is someone who's trying to craft the best warrior, someone who can come up with the best strategies. She tells him, well, she tells us that her test to find the greatest warrior was a magic board that she created that only the best person could kill, and it turned out to be a much younger Odysseus. We don't really see how he did it, but he managed to outsmart the boar and kill it. And he actually plays a clever trick. He senses that something about the boar is supernatural, I guess, and he says, "Show yourself to no one in particular." And Athena reveals herself, saying like, "Hey, how'd you do that? How did you know I was there?" It turned out to be a bluff. So they have a back and forth, and it's established pretty quickly that these two have very different ideas of this relationship and how it works. Um, Athena sees it as strictly a mentor thing because Odysseus is like, "Oh, this will be great. We'll be, best friends, you and I." And Athena's like, "Whoa, calm down there." Uh, yeah, we see right away that he is interested in befriending her, but she wants it. She wants to keep it strictly professional. She calls him a warrior of the mind, and her last words to him are, "Don't disappoint me."
A little fun fact about uh their like meeting. The whole like boar situation is another original of the musical. Uh I think in the original Odysseus did face a boar, but it wasn't from Athena. It was just I want to say from a hunting trip, and he ended up getting a scar on his leg, which is like a much important detail like much later on in the story. Um but Jorge, the creator of Epic,
Mm-hmm.
decided to like that would be a good way to, I guess, incorporate Athena's introduction into the story and like how did she like meet Odysseus? How did they like get tested and whatnot?
So the boar in the original story, is it a? It's I'm assuming it's just a regular boar. It's not magical.
Yes.
So the stuff like that. That's what I kind of like about Epic. The adaptations are very, I want to say, pragmatic. Um, because this could just be another part of the story, but he found a way to incorporate it into the version of the story that he wants to tell.
Yes.
Uh, it's very, it's a very expeditious form of storytelling because this song is only about like 2 minutes long, but it already tells us so much about the relationship these two have. They love to like verbally spar back and forth, but Athena is ultimately the authority here, and she thinks that Odysseus is kind of losing sight of her teachings because of Polyphemus' influence. So it's a reminder that from her, that she expects him to be more harsh as a military commander.
I feel
Which,
like there are moments that we could have seen because there are a lot of songs that were cut. So a lot of like
yes.
potential like stories from the original book that was also taken out. Like the I saw a video of Jorge explaining that he had different ideas for this raid the crew was supposed to do, and like the different takes Odysseus was thought about making, either raiding and like pillaging and killing the people, or raiding and but not harming anyone. And
Oh,
how
I
would
saw
the
this.
like
Yeah.
yes, how would the crew react? Um, and there it was just like different ways to show like Odysseus's like mind when it comes to like warfare.
Yep. From what I understand, is supposed to explore like his two different approaches. Does he go the more merciful approach or the more ruthless approach?
And both have their like pros and cons.
Yeah. But I think what we got here is pretty neat. Um,
Yes, the like actual what was actually released is like I feel like it's perfect. It takes what it needs from the original story.
I would still like to. A lot of people have asked to have like a cut song album, just because we're all curious.
I think at some point a like cut saga is supposed to be released, but he's just trying to figure out the best approach to it.
Yeah, because depending on like the various stages of completion these songs were in, some of them sound like they were like ready to ship, but I guess some of them were like in the draft phase as well. So it's like, what do you do with songs that are not quite complete, songs that only have like, you know, a verse or two that are ready to go? I guess that would
And
be the
then
complication.
and also a lot of those songs may be like the first introduction someone has to Jorge and his like work.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more cut songs than there are actual songs in the album.
Yeah, it's kind of
So
insane if you
it's
to see like what could have been. And there's I feel like we don't even know about all of them.
nah, there's a lot because he's been working on this for years.
Years.
Like I first heard of it back in like 2020 when before any of the albums were released, but when he was just like releasing like snippets on TikTok. Um and but even before that he was working on it like years before.
Yeah, apparently this was like I don't remember. I think it might have been like his thesis. It was very
I
much
think
a
so.
like a passion project, and it shows. Also worth pointing out, Polyphemus' instrument is a mallet, um, a percussion instrument. We are going to find out why. We make it to the cave, and we brought the whole crew, and they're like, "Oh my God, look, all these sheep." Um, I think you. I don't know if this is a stock sheep sound effect, but as soon as I heard it, I was like, "Oh, it's the sheep from Minecraft." um, monkey brain. Odysseus leads them into the cave, and even Eurylochus is like, "Hey, gotta hand it to you guys." But Odysseus is like, "Well, I don't know, cause why would they leave all these perfectly good sheep here? This huge wealth of food. What's it doing in this cave?" Um, but then we hear a thud, big booming footsteps, and we hear a big booming voice. Who are you? Who are you? They've already killed one sheep at this point. So Odysseus, he's trying to play it cool. He's like, "Hey, we come in peace. We're just travelers." I think it's really funny how blunt this is. He's just the Cyclops. He's like, "You killed my sheep."
My
And it
favorite
turned out
sheep.
that it was his favorite. Yeah. He was like his best friend. It's especially funny if you think of the Cyclops as like having the mind of a child essentially. Um, it's the equivalent of like breaking somebody's favorite toy, or well no, because this was a living thing and this was his a best friend, and he's like, why would you do that, man? So he's not too happy about that. He's threatening their lives at this point. He's like, I'm going to kill you, cause life for a life, that sort of thing. So Odysseus, the electric guitar comes in because he's having one of his cunning moments. He's like, let's make a deal. I'll give you some of our finest treasure, and in return, you let us live. And the Cyclops is intrigued, so he's like, okay, what you got? Odysseus offers their finest wine. Gift from. Does he say like it's a wine from the gods, or am I confusing that with the original story?
Um, I think you're confusing it with Hades in terms of like nectar,
Oh yeah, probably.
but this is just their finest wine, just the best wine they have on them.
Yeah, and there's something really clever about the way Odysseus kind of like shifts the dynamic because at first, Polyphemus the Cyclops, um, he says, "You come to my home to steal the lyrics, but now you'll become my meal. A trade, you see. Take from you like you took from me." But when Odysseus is offering the wine, he switches it to a trade, you see, a gift from you and a gift from me. He's trying to basically downplay or like sweep under the rug the fact that they were the ones who um breached the agreement by killing his sheep. Now he shifted to like, hey, I give you a gift, the wine, and you give us a gift. You let us live. See, that's fair. um, so he tries the wine, uh, the Cyclops, and he's like, hey, here's some good shit. What's your name? And of course, if you know the original story of Odysseus, he says his name is Nobody. Uh, and someone might be like, that's a bit strange. But in any case, the Cyclops is like, hey, you're alright. So I'm going to kill you last. It's like, oh shit. Because this is where the song ends. And the next song is called Survive. Uh, Odysseus, he rallies his guys. And they're like, alright, we're going to have to fight the Cyclops. Their plan is to, I guess, like scatter and sort of use their numbers against him. Oh, he says surround him, attack him from behind, keep distance in mind, strike him in the heels. Um, which when you're going against a giant beast, that might be the way to go. It seems to be working at first, but the Cyclops, he gets the advantage because he gets out his big old club, and he slaughters several of Odie's men, including good old Polyphemus, because he was just too good for this sinful earth. I think we hear 15 splats, so that's 585 men left.
I always wonder if every splat is another person or if Polyphemus is smacking like the same person repeatedly. That's something I never like,
Oh, I didn't consider
you
that.
know, because after this, it makes it seem like Polites was the only like deaf. At least that's how like they speak. They don't speak like everyone like anyone else who died. They only mention Polites.
Well, Apolotes is the named character, and his death uh, clearly has a big impact on not just Odysseus but the entire crew, as we'll find out. Um, but I guess it's possible. I just assumed that 15 of them died.
I mean, that was my like initial thought as well. But the more I heard it, and like the more videos I seen, I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm not.
Because
But I
there are people
mean,
who are saying like, Captain, what are our orders before they get smacked to death? There's got to be different people, right?
I'm assuming, but at the end of the day, it doesn't entirely matter after we see what's to come.
I guess. um, something important to bring up is that I think this is our introduction to the danger motif. Am I right about that? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I think so.
The danger motif is essentially like whenever there is danger in the area, you'll hear like doo 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 doo, and the chorus is singing Polyphemus as this is happening. Um, this is one of those recurring motifs that's gonna come up a lot. But everybody is paralyzed with fear. Now that the Cyclops has his club, and they're wondering what to do next. They're like, Captain, what do we do? What are we supposed to do with all of our fallen men? It's over, isn't it? But Odysseus is like, all right, we don't have much time. Oh, this is something I had to learn from the animatics as well, because the Cyclops suddenly stops attacking. That's because he's been knocked out. The wine had lotus root mixed in it, which I'm guessing is also it's an epic original, because the wine wasn't made with
Uh,
the lotus in the original, right?
no, in the original, I think the Cyclops just got tired of like killing them, and so he just
Yeah, I thought he was
uh
just like done.
closed he closed off the cave, um, and just went to sleep while the other men were just like hiding in a corner trying to figure out what to do. But in I think it was in the Polyphemus song where it it doesn't show it or it doesn't say, but in the animatics we see Odysseus like slip the wine or slip the lotus into the wine as he's giving it to
Yeah,
Polyphemus.
yeah. But here he makes it explicit. He's like, we don't have much time. I put lotus in his wine. Bars. And he says, don't let the others die in vain. Remember the fallen, that sort of thing. So he has new orders. Take the club, sharpen it into a spear, and stab him in the eye with it. His body is blocking the path, so we can't kill him. Otherwise, we'll be stuck, because he's got a big old man mountain cyclops body. Excuse me. Um, so it seems to work. The cyclops he's bleeding. It's hoits. He's bleeding from the eyeball. Um, so he asks his cyclops brethren for help, and they're like, "Who hurt you?" And Odysseus is like, "Oh, guys, I did something really cool. Watch this." Eurylochus is like, "Captain, could we please leave?" And Odysseus is like, "No, no, no. It'll be great. Watch." Um, he says nobody hurt him, which is obviously the payoff for him calling himself nobody earlier. So they're like, "Hey, if nobody hurt you, shut the fuck up," and they leave him. Uh, Athena then comes in. She does her domain expansion, and she's like, "Hey, fucker, if you don't kill him, he's still a threat. Finish the job." And Odysseus is like, "No, killing him won't do any good. We could use more mercy in the world." Sort of like, if this is what it takes to be a warrior of the mind, no, he says, "No, I'm gonna do my own thing." He's blind. He's no longer a threat. We've injured him. We can leave. I'm leaving. But before he does, he takes it a step further and he tells the Cyclops, "Hey, fucker, I tried to be nice and you killed a bunch of my people, so you better remember who I am." He says, "I am the king of Ithaca." Odysseus literally doxes himself. This probably won't have consequences later.
And it's funny. What I like about the musical is that Odysseus says it in like the spur of the moment, where it's like the tensions are high. He just had this argument with Athena. He just when his polities dies, and so he like tells the Cyclops like who he actually is. But in the book, Odysseus reveals who he is out of just pure cockiness,
Pure
pettiness.
hubris.
Yes, hubris. That he just couldn't leave without the Cyclops knowing who specifically outsmarted him.
Yeah. Here it's definitely treated more as like I guess like a high from surviving and avenging Apologies in them. But Athena cuts in again and she says again, "Have you forgotten what I taught you?" He says, "You've gone soft. I'm done with you. You're done. You're fired." Um and Odysseus is like, "You know what? Fuck you. You're if you're so wise, how come you're so alone?" Uh they shout at each other, and the underlying tension in their relationship, understanding the kind of dynamic they have, it kind of cuts to a head here. Um, I think she outright says, like, "I'm not looking for a friend and you're not looking for a mentor, so it's better that we just go our separate ways." Um, she says, "This way you won't disappoint me, you won't waste my time. I'm closing the door. Consider this my goodbye." And Odysseus, in return, he's like, "Okay, fine. You can. I don't need you in my head telling me what to do, trying to control my life. Um, get out of here," essentially. So these two have cut ties. It's over between them, and I believe this is the end of the Cyclops saga.
And also, I just want to point out that it was in this song that the "Just a Man" motif comes up again, which is going to come up like
Yes.
several times throughout the musical.
The context is Athena's telling him, "Okay, you're not getting what I'm saying, but I understand. I can't even blame you because you're just a man." And that's it for Athena. She is gone from the musical. We are never gonna see her again. Um, it's nice to have her while she was here, I guess, but that's so much for that character. Which brings us to the Ocean Saga. Odysseus and the crew, they are heading home. But there's a big old storm. These, the likes of which we have never seen. There's quite big old waves and treacherous winds. And how are we gonna make it through? Something that Jorge has said a couple of times is that there's certain moments in Epic where things run on like video game anime logic. I'm bringing this up because Odysseus sees an island in the sky, and Odie commands his crew to like throw their harpoons at it, and even Eurylochus is like, "What?" It happens a lot. There are characters who just like they don't sing; they're just spoken word, just a flat what, um, and it's funny every time. But the fact that this is something that Odysseus can do is pretty indicative of the kind of logic the story is running on. I think it's fun.
I'm not gonna. I do like the idea of there's a like an actual floating island in the sky, because it also gives this like godly feel, like this
Yeah,
island is the home of a god. But I think in the actual story, the island like is called floating island, but it's just an island that's not like it's just floating in the water. It's not like anything underneath connecting it to the like earth, if
to
that
the
makes sense.
earth. Yeah, I like when the story takes these liberties because you know this is a story with supernatural elements. So I'm really fine with stuff like this. But before they get onto the island, um, Eurylochus has his own song, and he tells them about doubts he's been having. He's like, I love you and everything, but you've been acting kind of reckless, and it's been getting people killed. The song is called "Luck Runs Out," and he basically asks like, how much longer do you think you're gonna get through on guile and wit and these indie ploys? We've already lost 15 men. Uh, and Odysseus says like, "Hey, I got us through Troy, and I'm still your captain, so you gotta have some faith in me." He pulls him aside privately and says that he's like, "I'm gonna need you to be all in and start following my orders without question," which makes sense because he tells him like, "I can't have you putting seeds of doubt in the crew." It's treated like a both sides have a point situation because Eurylochus is also concerned with the safety of the crew, and I think he tells Odysseus that he loves him as a brother. He doesn't want to lose him, but it's important to keep morale up. Because as we see, uh, Polyphemus' death, nothing's been really the same after that, and when you got a crew of this many people, you want to keep everyone humming along. Uh, Otherwise, it's not going to be good for them. But
I also want
Odysseus.
to add
Oh yeah, go ahead.
about Eurylochus that this is the second time that he's like questioning Odysseus's like orders. The
Yes.
first time was if we should go to the Lotus Island or not. Um, But their dynamic is pretty interesting because, like you said, he sees Odysseus as a brother, but he technically is like brother-in-law in the story that I think he's
Oh,
either
yeah, that's right.
married or engaged to Odysseus's sister.
Yeah.
Um, so they are pretty much family. But at the same time, Odysseus is still his like king, his superior. Like like Eurylochus should already be following his orders without much question.
Does the fact that they're brother-in-laws, that doesn't come up here, does it?
No, it's just they see each other as brothers.
Yeah. But it gets the point across. Um,
Yes.
yeah, very consistent part of Eurylochus's character. He's a cautious man. He's not as optimistic as o- Polites or even Odysseus. Um, but Odysseus says, "I'm going to talk to the god. I'm sure they're friendly." He's still willing to try the open arms approach. So he goes to the wind god Aeolus, who actually does seem to be pretty friendly. He tells her about the storm, and she says, "Hey, I got something for you. I got this big old bag. This is the bag of winds." And I was instantly reminded of SpongeBob.
I'm actually glad you brought that up because or this SpongeBob the movie is based on the Odyssey.
Yeah.
So the idea of the windbag and like other or the Cyclops
Uh huh.
that we see in SpongeBob are taken from the Odyssey, or actually the entire journey of going from point A to point B. The like all of but like things happening in between. That's all thanks to the Odyssey.
Yeah. It got me thinking about the other comparisons. It's something that we talked about. That like the journey of trying to get to somewhere, but shit keeps happening along the way. Um, yeah, this was if not the one that created it, the one that definitely popularized it. It codified it, if you will. Um, so he talks to Aeolus, and she's like, "Hey, I'll give this to you. It has the storm trapped inside. She has the storm inside of the bag. All you have to do is not open it." Sounds easy enough. Odysseus is like, "Okay, what's the catch?" And oh well, the catch is you're not supposed to open it. She treats it like a game because these fucking gods, they treat everything like a game. Um, so Odysseus is like, "Hey fellas, I have this bag. We have to not open it." And I should mention, Aeolus has like these little, like, I want to say like minions with her. They're called
They're
the
called the
Winions.
Winions.
Yeah, they're another epic original, and they're really cute. Um, they show up as Odysseus is talking about the bag, and they say it's treasure, and then they just leave. They only come to cause problems, and then they leave. Um, so obviously everyone is already curious, but now they want to see what's in the bag now that they know. Well, now that they think that there's treasure inside. And Odysseus very warily, he's like, "Guys, this has the storm inside. We really cannot open it. It's the only way we're gonna get back home." And Aeolus says, "You gotta keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. Um, People are going to do whatever they need to if they think the ends justify it. So don't be afraid to." The first time she says sometimes killing is a must, Odysseus is like, "What? The spoken what again?" And she like skips over it. I thought that was pretty funny. But Odysseus is able to, keep the bag closed. He has to stay awake for 9 days, I think, just to make sure no one's open it because everybody's curious. Um,
Yeah, he stayed awake for 9 days just to watch over the bag.
Yeah, because there's distrust amongst the crew now. They even say everything's changed since Polites. So Odysseus, he's like delirious. He's dreaming about his wife and his son, and they're almost home. He's like, I'm gonna make new memories with you guys. I'm gonna be able to be the father I never was. But Penelope in the vision, she is telling Odysseus to wake up. He's fallen asleep, unfortunately, and they have opened the bag. And I think I remember it was you who told me that Ithaca was like on the horizon. It was in sight when this happens.
Yes, they were close enough that not only could they see Odysseus's castle and like see the smoke, they could like smell like the food from like the kitchen being made. Like
Christ.
they were less than a day's way
They were there.
from they made it, but the crew decided to open the bag right there, right before they made it back to the island because
Oh.
they the whole reason they opened the bag was because they didn't really receive any like treasure or anything from the war because they had to leave it all behind. Um, so they're sort of going home empty-handed, and
Oh, I
back
didn't know
then,
that.
they like having like spoils of war was really important to them for their like reputation and pride and whatnot. Um, so they like really wanted to get something, I guess.
Okay, that makes makes a lot more sense why they'd open it, cuz I thought it was just like pure greed. I was like before I was
Part of
like,
it,
if you think, even if you don't fully believe it, if you're told that the storm is in there, why would you risk opening it?
I feel like part of it is greed though, because like you said, like the storm is inside. They went through this terrible storm, and then all of a sudden, comes back with a bag, and the storm stops. So like, okay, the storm has to be inside the bag since it stopped,
Yeah,
storming. So
like the storm was the reason they couldn't get home. And man, just imagine the fucker who opened the bag. Man, who would do such a thing? Anyway, um, yeah, Aeolus is like, you had one job. You weren't supposed to open the bag, so you're on your own. The storm fucking blows them all the way back to where they started. No, I think it's even further because she says they're going to the land of the giants, right?
yes, and so I'm confused if the giants are also the Cyclopses, Cyclops.
I thought it was the corpses of the titans that the gods slain.
Because the giants in like mythology are like different people or different groups, I guess, in the Cyclops, but the musical doesn't really, I guess, show it. Like
They don't
you're
specify
saying,
who.
they're going to the land of the giants, but it doesn't really matter, I guess,
Yeah.
because
Anyway, it's not as important, I guess, because
or maybe in the actual story, I'll need to like continue reading. There is more importance to the land of the giants instead of
I think so.
it just being like the Cyclops, but we'll have to like do some more research on the side. But it doesn't like entirely matter because of what of the next song that comes up.
Yeah, it's not as important as who is here, because at the end of the song we hear a voice. Oh, Odysseus of Ithaca. Do you know who I am? It is Poseidon. The next song is called Ruthlessness. And I really like everyone's got their own interpretation of Poseidon. I like Gigi's design with like the water arm, but I like Neil's like the water horses that he's got.
Ne- Neil is the one with
Oh, Neil has the
the
water
water
arm.
arm, but Neil also incorporated horses. A few of them did incorporate the horses, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Neil she put the arm the has a little like eye necklace to symbolize. Well, you'll explain it of why the eye is important to Poseidon,
Yeah.
and the horses.
Um, we hear the danger motif, and the choir is saying Poseidon's name. Um, Jorge has said this is pretty explicit. He is the danger. Um, because the melody is it's being sung. It's saying Poseidon, Poseidon. Um, so Poseidon says like, it's not often that I get pissed off, but you've crossed the line here. Which is funny if you know the mythology. Like Poseidon is like one of the easiest gods to provoke. But of course he says that the Cyclops that Odysseus is blinded was his. Um, what Odysseus did essentially is basically cyberbullying somebody and then giving them your IP, and then their dad works for Microsoft. Uh, he tells him that you were too. It's not easy to understand at first, probably, but he basically says that he's mad that not so much that he wounded his son, but that he didn't have the guts to finish the job. He was too much of a pussy to kill. And he mocks him for being self-righteous, and not only for letting his son live, but for revealing his name as he did. He sees it as like as pride. I think he says self-righteous Greek is a Greek who reeks of false righteousness. That's what I hate. He says, he says you're the worst kind of good because you're not even great. Um, he even says like all of this could have been avoided if you had just killed my son. This is the other end of that ruthlessness spectrum I was talking about. A value that Poseidon has is that ruthlessness is ultimately mercy upon ourselves. So if you're going to do something, go all the way. No half measures. Kill if you need to, because it's the only way to communicate the message that you shouldn't be messed with. And if you don't do that, you're cringe. Trying to think if I'm missing anything. Oh, Odysseus. He tries to bargain for his lives. For their lives. He says, you know, we didn't take pleasure in what we did. We just wanted to escape. Your son was in the way. I found a way to get rid of the threat without killing him. But this is exactly what Poseidon is pissed off about. So he says, I'm just gonna kill you guys. Uh,
Poseidon has a line about the the line between
naivety
hopefulness and
and hopefulness.
naivety, and because Poseidon was telling Odysseus, he'll let him go if he, apologizes for hurting his son. But then with this line, it sort of says like maybe he did accept the apology, but he still has to show him ruthlessness. Like no matter what Odysseus said, he was still going to attack him and his crew to
Oh,
show this idea that, the world is cruel and you have to be ruthless.
well, it's interesting that you see it that way, but because I think something worth pointing out is that Odysseus doesn't actually apologize. Um, I see it as like he's making excuses for what he did. The lyrics are Poseidon, we meant no harm. We only hurt him to disarm him. We took no pleasure in his pain. We only wanted to escape. Um, this is what leads to the line where he says the line between naivety and hopefulness is almost invisible. So I guess you could see it one way or the other, but essentially, he's like, I still have to teach you a lesson here. I think even if he had apologized, he would have still, did what he did. But so this is something to think about, I guess. But
But then
yeah, go ahead.
oh this or oh then Poseidon, attacks the crew,
Yep.
saving Odysseus and his like specific boat. And out of the what was it, 585 men you said,
Yeah.
there's only 43 left.
Mm-hmm. He sinks every boat except Odie's, and he is about to sink Odie's too, but Odysseus opens the wind bag at the last second to get them out of there. Because at the end of the last song, he says, close the bag. We can use whatever's left for another day. And it's very lucky that he did that because the wind bag is what gets them out of there. And Poseidon is like, we'll meet again. He says, "Remember me." It's an echo of Odysseus's line in the song. So we probably won't be seeing him again. I'm sure he's not pissed. At this point, it's been 10 years.
It's been the war lasted 10 years, but now we're about like 2-ish years on the journey.
On the journey, yeah. And yeah, there's 43 men left. Um, that leads us to the Circe Saga. We wash up on an island, and Eurylochus tells Odysseus that he has a confession to make, but he doesn't get to say it because Odysseus he's all like despondent, and he's like, "Please, it can wait. Just go check out this island and make sure that it's safe." Um, which is understandable. He just lost a shit ton of men, and he sees it as his fault. Um, Eurylochus' secret, I think it's interesting that he would choose to reveal it here, because, well, without talking about what it is, I'm sure he feels a lot of guilt over what's just happened. But anyway, we get a time skip, and Eurylochus, he comes back, and he tells Odie that something happened. I think this scene is kind of funny. He's like, we faced all sorts of gods and monsters and all kinds of threats, but we have never seen something like this. And Odysseus is like, what is it? And he goes, a woman. What?
And then yep, this is where we hear what again.
Yeah. And he goes, she had us in just 2 words, come inside. And
Damn.
Odysseus is like, damn. You guys folded that quickly. And a big old palace, lovely lady coming inside saying, I got food. And Circe is what you call a humanitarian. She gives them, oh my god, some of the Gigi's animatic, she has her serving them pork, which is pretty fucked up considering what happens. Because obviously, if you know the story, the food is laced with magic that turns the men into pigs. We get some insight into Circe's character. She has her own form of ruthlessness. She thinks that the world is not a forgiving place, so you have to basically become a puppeteer, which is what the song is called. You have to become that to, have any sort of place in the world. It's a kill or be killed mentality that she has. She even says, this is the price we pay to live. She has her own agenda. She's got nymphs that she wants to take care of. So she's at the point where she just doesn't take any chances with strangers, which we're going to find out the reason why for. Or at least we'll get some insight as to why that is. But Eurylochus, he tells Odie he's like, hey, we should just cut our losses and get out of here. We lost a lot of people already. um, which again I think is interesting considering what secret Eurylochus is hiding. I can't wait to talk about it. But the important part is Odysseus is like, hey, I'd love to, but we've. He also says we've lost so many people, but he cites that as the reason why he can't give up on them now. He even says, if it was me, I would hope you'd do the same. And towards the end of the song, we hear harps and lyres. This is musical storytelling to tell us that someone is listening in. Uh, this takes us to the very next song, and the person who was listening was none other than the god Hermes. And Hermes is very, very popular because of his songs and his personality. But what I think is interesting is that he every time he shows up, he helps with no strings attached, which I think is very interesting. Um, and someone might be like, well, he says, the solution he gives is not guaranteed to work, but it's like he communicates that. He doesn't do what Aeolus did, where everything seems chill, but then she causes problems later, or there's some fine print that's missing that they just fail to communicate. He gives Odysseus a flower that will. Does it conjure a creature?
Um, in Epic, the flower Molly, it gives, I guess it like copies Circe's powers. It allows Odysseus to do the same thing that Circe does. But I think in the actual story, it's just Circe's magic doesn't have any effect on Odysseus.
He kind of uses vague terms. He says it'll give you the power to match hers. Um, I'm trying to find. I'm looking through the lyrics if he talks about what it actually does. Oh, he says the flower it'll. He says you'll manifest a being of your creation. All you need is imagination. Um, this in the fight that he actually had, the confrontation he actually has with Circe is something I very much relied on the animatics for because I couldn't really tell what was happening. But anyway,
With this, with the Circe Saga, there is a lot that's like happening that I relied on the animatics as well.
yeah.
But I also want to like throw in a little fun fact about Hermes is that people see him as a messenger god and whatnot, but he's also the god of mischief. So
Ah,
part of him is helping Odysseus because he's like related to Odysseus in a way, like the like, grandfather of sorts, or great grandfather, something like that. There's a lineage there. But he's also helping Odysseus because he sort of just wants to see what happens. He likes to like mess around with people, and he has some history with Circe. So he's like, you know, let's let's see what happens if I give Odysseus this flower.
does he have beef with Circe?
Um, it's not necessarily beef. They have a history together.
Because he
Because
knows of him.
they they've been so I'm going off of Madeline Miller's book
Mm-hmm.
Circe. So I don't know if it's in like Homer's version or something, but since they've been around for like millennia or so, because Circe is a titan, uh, Hermes is a god, so they've been around forever, and Circe's stuck on this island. So Hermes, being the god who he is, he decides to visit, shows up every now and then, and there's somewhat lovers here and there, very on and off relationship,
Oh.
um, but they're not like they got to a point where Circe just didn't want anything to do with the gods, including Hermes. Uh, and so it's not like necessarily beef. It's hard to say if Hermes has beef with anyone because he gives that like little brother energy or youngest sibling energy where he does what he wants.
Yeah. I guess I guess that makes sense. That he just someone who's been around as long as he has. He's kind of bored, and a lot of these gods, they like I said, they treat everything like a game. So I can believe that he just wants to see what happens. He's just here for vibes. Um, yeah, he calls the flower holy moly, and Odysseus is like, huh. Uh, I think that's it for that song. It's catchy. I like it. Taking us to uh oh, something else I want to mention. They call Circe. They refer to Circe as a goddess, right?
Yes,
It seems to be
because
that in Epic, if anybody has like powers of any kind, they are a god, even if they're not in the original.
she's technically a god. I don't know. The term Titan and god is very like interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like if a human sees Cersei like, okay, she's a goddess. Like she's not mortal. And I think that's the like umbrella term, either mortal or god.
God.
Um and Cersei is she's a god, but not like an Olympian god. She's a Titan. She's the daughter of Helios.
Yes, yeah, I didn't know that. Like, pretty much all of my knowledge of this story comes from this musical, so I don't know what is adapted and what is from the original.
The interesting thing though is that Cersei isn't like she doesn't have unique god powers.
Mm-hmm.
Um she seems very mortal, except the fact that she has these witch powers, which is unrelated to the god powers. Because anyone, any god or more, not any, but they have to have some sort of affinity. But a mortal or a god could become like a witch or wizard. I think it's
Wizard.
just, I think it's just witch in like umbrella term. Um, so she has
Mm-hmm.
these like witch-like abilities that she was able to like hone over like centuries of like practice and stuff. So she seems godlike, even though she doesn't have god powers, even though she is a god, if that makes
She
sense.
just practices magic, which any human can do.
Yes, if they have like a sort of like affinity to it.
Well, that makes sense to me. Seems easy enough. Um, so some more like musical storytelling. He enters her palace, and you hear Circe's like instrumentation. It's very distinct. She uses it's like a violin, is it? I got a list. Staccato strings, that's what it is. But as Odysseus approaches, you can hear the electric guitar and you can hear his theme, which his theme is like a ding 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 ding. So he goes to confront her, and he's playing it cool. He's like, "Hey, I sent some guys to check this place out, and they never came back. So, do you know what happened to them?" And she says, I, I, she's playing it innocent. She's like, "I just revealed their true forms," and Odysseus like, "You turned them into pigs." And Cersei's just like, "Huh." So now that the jig is up, she, drops the act and she's like, "Okay, listen. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want, but if you do something I don't like, I'm just going to kill you." She is at that point. Uh but Odysseus counters her. He's like, "Hey, I have the power of a god too, fucker. So if you do something I don't like, I'm just going to kill you." And they say they both got people to protect, so they're gonna do whatever they have to. And the animatic on screen now has Circe summoning a chimera, and I think it's pretty much unanimously agreed that this creature that Odysseus summons is a cyclops. Is there some truth
Yeah.
to that?
Um at least to the musical, yes. In the actual story, I don't think they conjure up actual monsters, but in the
Yeah.
musical, the whole like Cyclops idea came from Jorge because he commissioned artists to like do like quick renditions of the fight and whatnot, and he had this idea of a like epic battle, and that the monster that Odysseus conjures is the monster he like just faced.
Yeah, which makes sense to me. And I think when you can actually hear the thud of the mallet and you can hear the creature growl. Um but the important thing is Odysseus overpowers her. He's like, "It's over, you're done. You're done for." But Circe, she's got other plans. Oh, I should mention she says that the reason she's so ruthless towards strangers is cuz the she and her nymphs, she says she sees them as her daughters, and they've been victimized in some way before. She says that they've
Yes.
faced a heavy loss. We don't get specifics on what that means, but we don't really need to. We just need to understand that this is the reason she's so distrustful, and why she's Jesus Christ, and why she is so quick to deal with strangers in the same way. But she says that there are other ways of persuasion. She turns the tables, if you will. She says, "I have no reason to give you my trust, but everyone's true colors are revealed in acts of lust." And Odysseus says, "I'm not sure I follow." He's kind of like, "What are you doing?" So she switches to a different tactic. She tries to seduce Odysseus, and it kind of falls flat, both because Odysseus is still in like we had to fight mode, but more importantly, he is committed to his wife. So Odysseus, he's just like, "Ugh, my wife, she's so great. I miss her so badly." And it's funny because at least in Gigi's animatic, she's just kind of like sitting there awkwardly because she's like, "Okay, you're kind of killing the vibe. What am I supposed to do now?" Um,
What I
Odysseus
like
is,
about Gigi's,
yeah, go ahead.
what I was going to say, what I like about Gigi's animatic is that I'm not sure if you're like showing the video or not,
I got her
but
animatic up.
yes, that Cersei is about to like stab Odysseus before he starts to talk about his wife and whatnot,
Yes,
and that's something I didn't imagine when I was listening to this, because like the whole idea of like acts of lust is like, okay, so you beat me in a fight, so now we're just going to sleep together, and then that's how I figure out.
same thing with
But
me. I thought it was a way for her to manipulate him, but Gigi portrays it as like a front for her to get the drop on him, so to speak.
yes, and I prefer that like vision a lot more.
Yeah, Gigi's animatics are really good. I like her design for both Odysseus and Circe. I think Jorge treats him as like the canon ones, don't he? I know they work very closely.
They definitely do work very close. Honestly, probably Gigi's like one of the like main like animators.
Yeah. But anyway, Odysseus is like, "Hey, you mind if I trauma dump?" And Circe's like, "Yes," but he does anyway. He says, I just want to get back home to my wife, but Poseidon is trying to kill me. So, you know, please just let me off the hook this one time." And Cersei is actually touched by this, and she says that it's interesting because she's still singing the lyrics of "there are other ways of persuasion, there are other modes of control." So, but she says that maybe one act of kindness leads to acts of kindness down the road. So she's still kind of taking the way I see it, she's still taking a manipulative approach to this, but she's she's kind of taking a more merciful approach in a more pragmatic sense, if that makes sense. Like, I do
Mhm.
something good this one time and maybe good things will happen for me. So she's still this is the way I saw it. That she's still doing it for selfish reasons.
That's interesting. I saw it more as maybe if I do this act of kindness, like some this person that I did kindness will like then do kindness to someone else, you know, like pass it on.
Yeah, that too, and yeah, that like people won't have to do what I do and become this ruthless puppeteer. I imagine she doesn't want more people like her in the world.
But then her last line is, what is it that is either maybe there's no need for a puppeteer, or maybe the world will
Yeah,
need a puppeteer.
maybe one day the world will need a puppeteer no more. She does say that she's been in love before as well. Odysseus rejecting Circe's advances here is going to be very, very, very important later. It's not an exaggeration to say that this saves his life. But anyway,
Which is
yeah, go ahead.
it's a the whole not sleeping with Circe and whatnot is a musical original as
This is an
well.
invention that I know. Because they
And
actually do hook up in the original. No.
yes, and Odysseus actually spends a couple like months, if not like a year or two, on the
Yeah,
island. And the they like stayed there to like recuperate, to like re-energize, to like because they were really tired after everything that's happened. So they really needed this like break.
yeah.
And Circe like definitely like came through for that.
This island is like a sanctuary, so in a wartime situation, you're gonna want to stay for as long as possible to build up on supplies and recuperate essentially. But anyway,
Yeah.
Circe tells Odysseus that there is someone who could help him in the underworld, but he is uh, I'm getting it all fucked up. Someone who can help him, but he's dead. So they have to go to the underworld, and that is it'll be a way to evade Poseidon essentially. Yes, I have that correct. Yeah.
Yes.
So Circe actually releases his men. She turns them back into people, and they go to the underworld so they can evade Poseidon. And this is something that I still like to this day. Like, go to the underworld. Is that something you can just do?
In Greek mythology, yes. Like there's been multiple stories where a character has to travel to the underworld to do something. So like in the Odyssey, or like with Orpheus and Eurydice, or Hercules traveling to the underworld, like several characters has have like gone into the underworld for whatever reason.
I just think it's
Um,
interesting. Like, we're gonna take our boat into the underworld. It's like, okay.
I forget what if it's the actual like entire ship they take into the underworld in the actual story, or if it's more like a vision or sorts. Um, but they do they do like I guess make their way to the underworld to like communicate with a lot of like the dead that are down there. But we'll get into that in the next saga.
I've heard before we move on to the Underworld saga, I guess I want to address people say that the Circe saga is like I've seen people say it's filler, it's superfluous. What do you think about that?
It's one of my favorite sagas actually. I is it needed?
Like,
Um
narratively speaking.
I would in terms of the Odyssey, I would say it is important because it shows Odysseus that there are like good gods in the world, and this idea of like helping someone out, I guess, reassures him of that like open arms idea that he's having,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe there's like a different approach to like what he doesn't have to be violent all the time. Um and Circe, I feel like definitely shows that she started out violent, but they were able to like work things out. And in turn, she was actually able to help him like further his journey.
Yeah. In terms of first of all, in terms of music, it's one of my favorites too. Like I listened to it very. It's probably my most listened to saga, because there are no skips. Um, but narratively speaking, I guess if you really, really wanted to be, pragmatic, you could cut it out and say that Odysseus and friends they found a way into the underworld to evade Poseidon. Um, you could do
The
that.
thing the only reason they're going into the underworld isn't to evade Poseidon, but to figure out how to evade him.
Oh yeah, that's right, because they gotta talk to the prophet.
Yes.
But I guess if
And the
you,
only way
mm-hmm,
the only way they were able to do it was through Circe's like
Circe.
magic. Because in like other stories, every character that's gone into the underworld like had some sort of help. Like Orpheus had help with um some sort of god. Like it depends on like who tells the story. Like in some versions it's like Hermes helps Orpheus, travel into the other underworld. Um in other stories is like Dionysus. So it really depends. With Hercules, I guess he's just, he's a demigod, so I feel like it's easier for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you would need help. I guess like
um
if you really wanted to, if you cut out the Circe saga, you go from Ruthlessness to the Underworld, and the Underworld starts with them paying a visit to Circe, and she helps them get into the Underworld to see the prophet. You could do that, but I wouldn't want to be without the Circe saga because I think it's very good for character. There's a lot of character stuff for Odysseus in particular, and like I said, him rejecting Circe's advances pays off later. So I guess if yeah, that's pretty much my position. You could cut it out, but I wouldn't want to.
honest I mean, I guess I could see it as like if you really wanted to, you could work things out because the Circe Saga only has like 4 songs, and then the Underworld has like 3 songs. The Underworld being like the shortest saga.
Yeah, I don't think it's without value. But then
Yeah,
again, I've seen people say the Underworld saga is filler, and I don't know I don't
that's
know how to respond to that.
I disagree with any idea of like filler because I feel like each story has some sort of importance.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But the crew is about to plunge into the underworld. We get the full speed ahead motif because he says like, "Hey, this place is gonna fuck with your mind, but whatever we see, we keep pressing on until we find the prophet." Um, so they take the plunge, and they are immediately tormented with the souls of all the people who died. The lyrics are all I hear are screams. All the people who died under Odysseus' commands, they're like, Captain, why did you let us die? Why did you let the Cyclops live? Which has got to be rough. And we see the return of good old Polyphemus. He's down here, and he does a reprise of Open Arms. And according to Jorge, people in the underworld are, uh, they're kind of saying whatever their last thoughts were before they died, which is like, oh, Polyphemus. He was smushed to death with a mallet, and this had to have been the last thing he was thinking.
To not let go of the open arms idea,
Yeah,
to still still open your arms out to the world.
He also says he's thinking about the infant. Dude, imagine if the baby showed up here. He was like, "Why did you kill me?" um, but the important part is his mother shows up here as well. She says that she'll be waiting, even if Odysseus is the last thing she sees. She'll wait for him until she dies, essentially, and she's committed to him. This is the first and last appearance of Odysseus's mom, which might seem strange, but she serves an important narrative purpose, which is essentially communicating to us that Odysseus has been gone a long time, and this will be the catalyst for the certain decisions that he makes. He's like, I've been gone long enough. I really, really, really need to get home. Because, obviously he's invested in his wife and his son, and he doesn't want to keep them waiting for much longer. He's already lost his mom. Have I missed anything from this track?
Um, no, no, that was it.
All right, well, that brings us along to the next song, No Longer You. Odysseus, he finally finds the prophet. His name is Tiresias, and he tells him of a grim future. I guess it's worth talking about the lyrics because they are very foreshadowy. He says, I see a song of past romance. I see the sacrifice of man. I see portrayals of betrayal and a brother's final stand. I see you on the brink of death. I see you draw your final breath. I see a man who gets to make it home alive, but it's no longer you. And it's worth talking about, is he being literal or allegorical? And the most, I guess, harrowing is that he tells him of his wife being haunted by a very dangerous man. And immediately Odysseus is like, who? But he doesn't tell him. Because he's a dick and he has to speak in riddles. This song is immensely important. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying that isn't that old prophets having speaking riddles?
I don't know if you've seen the. I want to remember the name of the guy who makes these videos. It's basically like Epic the Musical abridged, but I really like his parody of this track, The Prophet. I see men partying in your palace. My crew, your crew, my crew, your crew. They're goners, aren't they? No, they'll be with you spiritually. And something else funny that he brings up is that Odysseus runs into a lot of farm animal related problems. You got the horse, and then the sheep, and the pigs, and this will not be the last. He says Old MacDonald hates you. Sorry, every time I see Tiresias now, I think of his version because he's an actual dick. Am I making it back? Good luck. But that brings us neatly to the next song, which is called Monster. This is the conclusion of not just the Underworld saga, but of Act 1. So this the Odyssey, not the Odyssey, Epic is in 2 acts with so 9 sagas, 2 acts. So reeling from the prophet's the revelation, Odysseus starts wondering if he's the problem, if he is the monster. And he thinks back to all the foes that he's faced, Polyphemus and Poseidon and Circe, and he asks, like, did they do what they do to survive, essentially, and to reach their goals? They don't question, they don't hesitate, they don't spend their time questioning if they're doing the right thing. And I've been doing a lot of that. So is that the reason why we've lost so many people? And he starts deciding that he's gonna have to do whatever he takes to make it back home. Um, so he says, "Well, I will have to become the monster." This is a huge turning point for Odysseus's character. Very fitting for the end of Act One. Odysseus is gonna start making a shift throughout the rest of the story into becoming a more excuse me, a more ruthless character in the wake of all these experiences that he's faced. I don't mean to go through this so quickly. Is there anything that you want to add? Am I missing something?
I think so. I think you've covered all of it.
Um, in Epic, the abridged, he says, "I either drop the ball or I drop the baby." Uh, oh, I think it's worth pointing out that he does bring up his own actions in Troy. Um, he says, in that situation, I did what I have to do. What I had to do. So, and he brings up he's lost his mentor, his best friend, his mom. So if I expect different results, I need to perform different actions, essentially. But yeah, that's Monster. Gigi's animatic is beautiful, as always. But the next song is called Suffering. This is the beginning of Act 2, the beginning of what is called the Thunder Saga. I wonder why it's called that. But